All right, so buckle up because today...
We are diving into a real head scratcher.
Oh, I love a good head scratcher. Tell me more.
This deep dive takes us into the online world of Kolozsvary.
Kolozsvary. That's
Yeah.
an interesting name. And it gets better.
Okay.
Their blog is literally called Kolozsvary.
Kolozsvary.
Wow, they're really committing to that name, huh?
I know, right? Like double down. And the blog itself.
It's a wild mix. We're talking posts from way back in 2017
Okay.
all the way to 2024, covering everything from, get this, music
Music.
to what seemed like some pretty out there political thoughts.
Okay, so like a bit of everything then. Sounds like my kind of deep dive.
Exactly. So you ready to put on our detective hats
I was born ready.
and try to figure out who Kolozsvary is, what they care about, and...
What this whole digital footprint tells us. I am so there. Let's do it.
Okay, so first things first, one of the things that really struck me was just how much variety there is in their posts.
Yeah, I mean, jumping between music and politics, that's not exactly
Yeah.
what you'd call a typical combination.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's like they're using their blog as this space to just kind of explore all these different sides of themselves.
It's like a window into their mind almost.
Yeah.
Intriguing.
Totally. So on the one hand, we've got all this embedded music, and they're using this name Coriomenes.
Coriomenes. Okay, now that's a name I haven't heard before.
Right, I know. Even that name.
It's like, what is that all about? I'm already getting lost down a rabbit hole.
Got a hell of a good rabbit hole.
Yeah.
What kind of music are we talking about here?
So, of course, I had to give it a listen.
Of course you did.
It's got this really interesting experimental electronic vibe. It's like,
Almost like they're pushing the boundaries of what we typically think of as music.
interesting. So not your typical top 40 hits then.
Definitely not. More like, if you took a bunch of different genres, threw them in a blender, and then added some, futuristic sound effects.
Okay, I can already tell this Kolozsvary is not someone who just follows the crowd. They're into their own thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm finding so fascinating. It's like they're saying, this is me, take it or leave it. Like, no apologies.
I like that. Authenticity, always refreshing to see online.
Right. And there's this one post that's from July 2022.
Okay.
And they specifically talk about
Right.
how they created a bunch of music that month, almost like capturing a moment of, I don't know.
Inspiration, maybe?
It does make you wonder what was going on in their life during that time.
Right. Like, was it a particularly creative period for them? Or maybe just, I don't know.
A moment where they felt like they needed to document what they were creating. We get this little glimpse
Yeah.
into their creative process, but then...
Things take a turn. And this is where it gets really interesting.
A turn how? Don't leave me hanging.
Around 2017, the whole vibe of the blog shifts dramatically. Like, we're suddenly entering a completely different section of their digital world.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. What's in this other section?
Okay, so picture this. We were just vibing out to some experimental electronic music, right?
Right. Our ears were ready for more Coriomenes.
Exactly. And then, bam, it's like someone hit the reset button on the whole blog.
Oh, that's got to be jarring. What happened? Did they ditch the music altogether?
Well, not entirely, but it's like it fades into the background.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly we're hit with this wave of political posts
Damn.
and commentary.
Interesting. So they went from sonic landscapes to the political arena.
Yeah.
Drastic shift. What kind of political stuff are we talking about here?
So brace yourself, because the hashtags alone are a trip.
Hit me with them.
We're talking hashtag Nije,
Oh, wow. Okay.
hashtag drain the swamp, even hashtag Syria and hashtag Fukushima. Like, it's a whole different world from those introspective music posts.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Those are some pretty loaded hashtags. It definitely suggests a particular worldview.
Right. It's like, hold on, is this even the same person? And then, to make things even more interesting, we start seeing names like David Steele.
David Steele, as in?
Yeah, the former intelligence officer.
Oh, right. The one known for, shall we say, alternative viewpoints.
Exactly. And Liam Sheff. You familiar with him?
The name rings a bell. Remind me.
He was really big in those online circles challenging conventional wisdom, especially when it comes to health and medicine.
Right. I remember now. So we're not exactly talking mainstream voices here. More like venturing into the fringes a bit.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then there's Ron Paul.
Okay, well, he's a more established political figure, longtime congressman, ran for president a few times.
Right, but he definitely represents a certain, let's say, libertarian perspective that often questions authority and government power.
Okay, so we're starting to see a pattern here. A leaning towards voices that challenge the official narrative, the accepted truth, however you want to put it.
Exactly. And this ties into this one post that really caught my eye. It's titled, Critical, Lethal, and Imminent Conditions. Even just reading the title, you get this sense of urgency, like something big is about to happen.
Oh, I know that feeling, like you've stumbled on something almost dangerous.
Yes. And the hashtags they use alongside it, hashtag Mega, hashtag Syria, hashtag Korea, hashtag VoteUS, hashtag EMP, it's like they're connecting all these different events and figures, suggesting maybe a larger threat, a bigger picture.
It's like they're building a case, right? Piecing together a puzzle.
Exactly. And this is where things get really tricky because we're trying to understand Kolozsvary's thinking, right? Like, are they buying into these ideas wholeheartedly? Are they just fascinated by them? Are they trying to warn people? We don't really know.
Right. It's like trying to understand someone based on their bookshelf. You can see what they're interested in, but you don't know which books they agree with, which ones they just found thought-provoking. It's just a glimpse.
Right, a glimpse into their digital world. And then, just when you think you're starting to get a handle on things, we get to the Vision 2020 post, and the whole tone shifts again.
Oh, in what way?
It's like, remember all that direct hashtag heavy commentary we were talking about?
Yeah, there's a lot to take in.
This is the opposite. Vision 2020 is more introspective, almost philosophical in its language. They start talking about the age of fission.
The age of fission. Okay, now that's an interesting phrase. What do they mean by that? We're talking nuclear fission here, or is it more metaphorical?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And they don't make it easy for us to figure it out. But it gets even more intriguing when you look at the rest of the post.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
They use this word rebuke. Like, we need to rebuke the age of fission. It's strong.
Definitely. It suggests a real sense of urgency, a need to push back against something they see as a threat.
Right. And it's interesting because they keep coming back to that drain the swamp idea, but it kind of evolves throughout the post. So we see drain nuclear swamp,
Okay.
even drain the 9/11 swamp. It's like they're expanding the scope of what they believe needs to be, I don't know, purged,
Oh,
cleansed.
it's interesting how that phrase takes on a life of its own, right? It's not just about politics anymore. It becomes this broader metaphor for, I don't know, rooting out corruption, whatever that means to them.
Exactly. So if we're reading between the lines here, maybe the age of fission is also metaphorical, not just about nuclear power itself, but something more symbolic, like a system or a way of thinking that Kolozsvary sees as, I don't know, inherently destructive.
I think that's a very insightful observation.
Yeah.
And remember, this comes after that whole cluster of politically charged posts from 2017. It's like Vision 2020 is an attempt to synthesize those anxieties, those concerns into a more, I know, a more profound statement about the state of the world as they see it.
Yeah, like they're trying to connect the dots, draw a line from those specific events and figures to a bigger, more systemic issue. It's almost like,
Right. And by calling it Vision 2020, it's like they're saying they've figured something out, right? Like they have this clarity, this insight. And the fact that it's a featured post on their blog, it suggests it holds a special significance for them.
it's not just a random thought, it's like a core belief.
Absolutely. Or a core fear, maybe.
So, if we take a step back, what does all of this tell us about Kolossery? I mean, we've gone from music to politics to almost like a philosophical manifesto. It's a lot to process.
It is. But I think it paints a picture of someone who is, really grappling with the world around them. They're clearly drawn to the fringes, to voices that challenge the mainstream narrative.
They're not afraid to ask the tough questions, even if the answers lead them down some pretty strange paths.
Exactly. And it reminds us that online identities are rarely straightforward. We see a snapshot, a curated version of someone's thoughts and interests, but we never really know the whole story, do we?
It's like that saying, never judge a book by its cover. Except in this case, it's more like, never judge a blog by its hashtags.
Perfectly put. And who knows, maybe someday someone will be digging through our digital footprints trying to make sense of it all.
It's a bit terrifying when you think about it that way, right? Like, what will our digital legacy be? What will people glean from our online selves years down the line?
It's a question worth pondering, for sure.
Yeah.
But for now, I think we've done our due diligence exploring the intriguing world of
Kolozsvary.
Kolozsvary.
We've journeyed through music, politics, and some, shall we say, unique perspectives.
And we've been reminded that everyone has a story. And sometimes those stories unfold in the most unexpected corners of the internet.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the mysteries of the digital world and the complexities of online identities. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep leaving your own unique mark on the digital landscape.